What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Oshay Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of the Celebrity Junk. Will Smith has been opening up a lot lately in his memoir, Will, that was released 2 days ago. And as we know, Jada Pinkett had a really close friendship with Tupac. They both went to Baltimore School of the Arts in the 80s, okay? Now, Will Smith says they were never intimate, but their love for each other was legendary, okay? And Will Smith, when he first met her, I believe that Tupac was getting ready to, was almost, to the end of his life. That relationship that they had, Will Smith felt he could not compete with. Okay? He was Tupac, and Will Smith was himself. Now, also, although that Will Smith was very popular in the 90s, I know that because I was there, I was alive. Tupac was more of a larger than life figure. He was somewhat of an influencer as far as being a militant, if you want to talk about that. He was a guy that had already been shot, so he was kind of a guy known to kind of like beat death. He had went to jail, so he had caused some problems for himself in certain aspects. And in the black community, when you can do that, you get a lot of clout for it. He had, beat death almost. He'd come back. He had reinvented himself, and he was, Tupac was a great actor, better actor than Will Smith was, in my opinion, at that time. And also, Tupac, had a certain level of a sex appeal with women. Not to say that Will Smith didn't, but Tupac definitely was. And Will Smith was a rapper. Tupac was a better rapper than Will Smith. So everything that Will Smith was trying to do, Tupac was much better than he was at, in my opinion. But see, here's something that I want to talk about. Tupac and Will Smith represents two coins of the black world, although they're both in entertainment. And I know that the black elite doesn't respect entertainers traditionally. But if you look at Will Smith, he is the builder of the black community. And I'm talking about in terms of, your black elite, in terms of people like, I would say folks like, Dr. Ben Carson, people like Thomas Sowell, okay, those kind of folks, the bourgeoisie kind of people, the people who don't resonate with the normal blacks because blacks feel like they're sellouts or they're, they don't care about them, people like that. That's who Will Smith he kind of relates to. He's the kind of people, and if we talk about like the attorney Lawrence Otis Graham, who has now died. He did a really excellent job in the 80s and 90s as disguising himself as a waiter. He went to Harvard, right? Or Harvard Law School, and he was in the black upper class. And he disguised himself and wrote this great book on the how he saw black America from being a poor person and then also being a part of the elite class. And people like Lawrence Otis Graham, who had a really, his wife is very successful. He just died this year. Those people don't relate to blacks. Okay? And they don't relate to black women. Guys like Lawrence Otis Graham, Thomas Sowell, who is married to a white woman, academics and things like that, they don't fare well in the black community. And when you date a woman that is used to dating somebody like Tupac, a guy who doesn't really, and I'm not trying to say that he didn't, but his stereotype, his stereotype is he doesn't build anything. He's like Brother Polite, Dr. Umar Johnson. These are guys who move the crowd, and they're loudmouths, but they don't really do anything. They don't build any institutions that black skin, like kind of like Coleman Young, Kwame Kilpatrick, those kind of guys in Detroit. In their skills of talking is one thing, but leave it up to them to show in time they're destroyers of the black community. Yet people like them. Coleman Young was the mayor of Detroit for 20 years. Coleman Young destroyed Detroit. But he kept getting reelected because he had that charisma, that zeal that blacks liked. And when you're a man like Will Smith and you're up against somebody like Tupac, who is everything that you're not, and you date a woman who's open to date a man like that, it's always going to be problematic. You can never compete. This is why those in the black elite, African Americans, they either marry each other or they marry outside the race. And when you try to compete with a man who can woo women with his charisma and woo the community with their antics, really, they just talk of the game, they don't do anything. When women like those kind of guys, the best thing that you can do is leave them alone. Because what happens is you get a lot of frustration. A lot of black men in the black community are frustrated because you're trying to compete with a Pookie or Ray Ray with charisma, and you just can't do that. The Pookies and the Ray Rays are not going to build anything. They're not going to have any infrastructure. So for a guy like you, you have to speak and you have to deal with people through your actions. If you went to Harvard or Yale, you need to be dealing with a woman that's very similar. If you're a medical doctor or an attorney, you need to be dealing with somebody very similar, right? Or somebody in that same class or from the same family. It's the only way. Now, some of you can argue and say that some of those chicks are into it with the Pookies and Ray Rays, which is true, but you have a less chance of not having that problem, all right? And you just can't compete with these guys. And that's Will Smith's issue, you know? Because the way that Jada felt about him, you should have been able to say, you know what? This is the kind of guy that she likes. I'm not that kind of guy, because nothing would ever be enough. And leave it alone, like I always tell guys. Women are not like banks, okay? What you put in is not what you get out. And for me, as a guy that's kind of more of a hybrid, I have, an academic perspective in my life and in my academic record. But at the same time, I'm also I can be very hood. I'm a perfect balance of them both, which allows me to interact with people from, both sides of Black America. But everybody's not like me. And I would tell guys right now that if you're a guy who is, not very charismatic, if you're a guy who is not, like a black militant or, a guy that's a big talker, kind of a Farrakhan kind of guy. And I'm not saying that Farrakhan didn't build anything. I'm not saying that. But if you're that kind of person, Khalid Muhammad, that kind of guy, if women like those kind of guys, pastors, you can't compete. You have to compete through your actions. Okay? And there's only if you're dealing with the black community, there's a significant few of black women you can deal with. And that's the point. You can deal with a woman from Africa, you can deal with a woman from the Caribbean, because they're a little bit more likely to not be impressed by just guys who talk loud and don't do anything. They're not impressed by that. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Oshay Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I really appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. Check out the first comment at the top. And as you know, the buffoonery remains the all-time high. I'm out.